Hello everyone, once again I'm Professor Mark Baines and welcome to week 3 of Exercise Physiology for Sport at Concordia University in fall semester 2018. As we go into week 3 now, leaving week 2, some thoughts about week 2 and really concepts that are kind of ongoing for the remainder of the course. Intensity versus work to rest ratios, in theory versus practice. Theoretically, when you perform any work that's anywhere 1 to 5 seconds, it's going to be primarily adenosine triphosphate. Certainly that's true, but it's also going to be high intensity. Not necessarily true. Assuming you want to pursue high intensity, which is of course the primary goal when someone's pursuing speed or explosiveness or maximal strength, right? Certainly that 1 to 5 seconds or arguably 1 to 10 seconds would be awfully close. 1 to 5 seconds for the top end 100%, but 95+% for certainly 10-15 seconds. Some would argue even close to 95% up to about 30 seconds. That's arguable, but somewhere in that range. However, if you don't allow yourself enough rest following that work period, and you can pursue consecutive sets, multiple sets, there's no way with short rest periods you're going to get the 90-95+% ATP required to give 90-95% maximal output. So it's not just about the idea of the work period, it's also about the rest period. If the two are not consistent, you're going to be getting the lower level of exertion relative to whatever. If the rest period's short, you're going to be getting low level output. If rest period is long, certainly you're going to be increased to probably have higher output, but in some situations like endurance work, there's no reason to rest for multiple minutes. In fact, you might get them tight again and actually have lower performance, even though it's lower intensity, by having too much time away. That's arguable, but certainly over repeated sets, that's certainly the case. You don't need that much rest, and it's also kind of a waste of time if it's not necessary to go that long. Generally speaking, the text and other sources often refer to high intensity, some cases as much as 60 seconds. Certainly 30 seconds and under, and certainly 20 seconds and under for sure. It's going to be high intensity. It's going to be involving predominantly ATP, creatine phosphate. Creatine phosphate, as we said before, could be as little as 5 seconds before it starts to wane significantly, or 10 seconds, 8-10 seconds before it starts to wane significantly and glycolysis kicks in. I think it's more arguable that you're looking at least 15-20 seconds-ish, maybe as much as 30 seconds before glycolysis truly takes over more than creatine phosphate. That's going to depend upon the athlete, going to depend on individual situations. To be fair, depends upon the individual readiness in a given day. Your energy systems are not going to function normally if you're not functioning normally. That's something to consider as well. We have that to always look at too. How are you doing today? Not just what the expectation is for your performance based upon past performance, but also what the readiness is today. That said, it's going to be high intensity if work period is 1 to 30 seconds and rest period is at least 90 seconds or more. If you don't have both those things, it is not high intensity. Well, arguably, I guess we could say moderate high intensity. 60 seconds, sure, you're still near that, but I think it's more fair to call that moderate to high intensity because it is predominantly getting more and more anaerobic past that 30-second time period for work as we close on 60 seconds and beyond. And certainly as you get 90 seconds to 2 minutes, now we're definitely getting where we're breaching that more possibility of being more aerobic than anaerobic, potentially. Okay, that said, if you're doing moderate to high intensity, where it's mostly glycolytic, as you're leaving the creatine phosphate primary energy source, going more into glycolysis, you're not going to see the aerobic energy system become predominant for at least the first 2 minutes. It's not going to get there at 90 seconds. Certainly more than likely in well-conditioned athletes, it's more like up to 3 minutes before they start becoming more aerobic. So you're going to see at least the first 2 minutes of work being more glycolytic than anything else for a higher performing athlete by at least 70%, at least 65-70% anaerobic. Some sources will say it's more towards 60% aerobic and 40% anaerobic as you get close to the 2 minutes. Certainly arguable, no question about it, but you could also argue that's dependent upon the given day, not just the given athlete. And again, if you have a speed type, power type athlete, you're going to need to be expecting that, or not need to be, but expect that they're going to be probably able to handle more anaerobic work for a little bit longer periods than a more aerobic athlete who's going to be going towards aerobic metabolism, not going to produce the same level of effort. You got a fast guy with good conditioning, or with good endurance, we should say, you can expect to be mostly anaerobic around that 2 minute time frame. You got an endurance person who has some speed, probably going to see potentially some more aerobic metabolism working at that 2 minute time frame more so than anaerobic. You want to train the aerobic side more than the anaerobic side. Now we're talking about any event or sport where it's truly continuous high intensity at 2 minutes-ish. Okay, there aren't too many sports that are like that. There's breaks and there's and whatnot, but wrestling, boxing, fighting, certainly track and field, Most other sports have some ebb and flow to some extent, and you can see some variations in moving from energy, like soccer and basketball and hockey, or in particular, really jump all over the place between energy systems, depending upon what athlete we're talking about, depending upon what their goal is in that given moment, or given next few minutes, can change dramatically, which is why we have to prepare those athletes for all these levels to some extent, and deciding upon ultimately what kind of athlete are they, and focus more of your training on toward that, not what kind of athlete you want them to be, what kind of athlete they are more like. That you need to be, you actually need to appropriately program your training and your practice sessions according to that, not just what you want them to be. Okay, moderate to low intensity training, we start getting that 2 to 3 minute time frame. Yeah, we're going more and more aerobic now, still fairly anaerobic for the most part, 50-50, 60-40, either direction, somewhere in there. That said, 30-60 seconds rest is probably all you're going to need, because you're only looking for 70-80%, possibly 85% ATP at the very, very most for a well-conditioned athlete after 60 seconds rest. Everybody else not going to get much more than 75% ATP in a minute rest. So be clear about your expectation of output once again. And of course, low intensity. All right, we're talking about activity 3 minutes plus. I don't care who you are. If you're well conditioned, you should be able to recover again in 30 seconds and perform that same level of intensity right now, unless that was a race pace or something like that, whereby race pace for an 800 guy or 1,000 meters, you're going to be burnt out. You can't go back 30 seconds later and do it again. But an endurance athlete who's actually going at their 1 mile pace, or their 3 mile pace, and they're a miler, then 3 minutes work followed by 30 seconds rest is going to be nothing. But you have to expect the intensity with which they're pursuing it, 3 minutes and beyond, is slower than their typical performance pace. That's very important to make that differentiation here. Okay? Hopefully that's more clear than less. It's very difficult to make it very simple. We certainly try to make it simplified, but it is never easy to apply these concepts. It's not, because there is variation here. But you have to show some understanding of it. I may have to repeat this several times over, and if I've confused you at all, because it is very complex, please let me know, and I'll give any more clarity that I can. Okay? That said, homeostatic control, the predominant job of homeostasis, or your body trying to reach homeostasis, we should say, is to normalize the system, to get you back to a controlled, easy to control level whereby there's no significant disturbances. The body loves that at a given moment in time. It doesn't like the exercise component necessarily. The reason sometimes you feel good with exercise because you haven't significantly challenged homeostasis. The body's going, we can do this, we can do this. You've ever had times when you're well conditioned, you feel like you're providing very little effort and you're doing well, yet the day before or 2 weeks ago, the same level of effort was hurtful and bothered you. You've achieved that homeostatic new level whereby the body can handle more gain, more disturbance, more challenge, and maintain its homeostatic level. That's phenomenal. That's the only way you're going to know. A person feels good while performing at better levels than they once performed weeks ago, months ago, right? It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to be at least weeks, probably months before you see significant changes in that regard. But that's achieving new levels of homeostatic balance, if you will, or a new level of homeostasis. That's the goal. Proper rest and work ratios appropriately, not ratios, excuse me, work and rest periods. Honestly, not a fan of ratios. Some people say 1 to 2 or 2 to 1 or 5 to 1 work to rest, whatnot. You got to be really careful with that, because ultimately it depends upon what the work period is, all right, before you determine what the rest period is. It's not just a ratio. It still has to do with these basic numbers of expectation to replenish ATP for muscular contraction. Okay? That said, moving into week 3 in chapters 5 and 6, we're talking about hormone response, the endocrine system. Exercise can be eustress or distress. You can get positive response from it. You can get negative response from it if you're not performing it properly or not programming it properly, and let alone performing it well. We got to know how we're going to do something, not just why we're doing something. How are we going to do it when we do it? Not just we're doing it because we want to get fast, we're going fast. How are we going to program that exactly? Which energy system are we going for? Then therefore, how much rest do we need? What muscle fiber types do we expect to be predominantly using when we're doing this? We have to understand that. The athletes don't. We say go, we say stop. You understand the general ideas, but ultimately we need to program it properly for them. And if they're not performing well, their RPE is higher than their performance output, when you can be sure they're saying, I feel like it's a level 9, and they're only performing at a level 8. Their performance is not going to last much longer. You're not going to get the benefit of repeated efforts at this level, so it's too much for them. On a given day, you may have to lower the intensity because their perception of effort is too high. 10 being as high as it's going to get, that's the expectation you expect from that all-out sprint, all-out effort, or a competitive effort in a sport, an actual track field event or any given game, they're all out. They're going to feel like, oh, it's level 10, because they're giving you everything. That's why people need oftentimes several days to fully recover from high-level competition. We have to take that into account too, right? But exercise can be beneficial, eustress. It can be too much. Rest period too short, work period too long, or the intensity too high, probably all the above for an awful lot of people. That's going to be distress, not eustress. And our goal is eustress. Metabolism. As we mentioned before, it's the sum total of all the chemical and physiological processes converting food into energy. The more efficient your metabolism, the more you can take all sorts of things in and utilize them better. The more efficient your metabolism, the more you're able to perform more work with less effort. The more you're able to do, the more you're able to take on, the more you're better able to handle stress. All very positive things. That occurs through a process of time, through the general adaptation syndrome, formulated by Walter Cannon primarily. As he moved through this concept of the body's adaptation to stress. And it got formulated more and more over time through more experts getting more data and actually determining that ultimately your body experiences this stress, a new stress you've never run before or you haven't run in a long time. It's essentially new, right? Once you become several weeks to several months away from something, you got to treat it as kind of new and not start again too fast, right? Start that stress low, start low intensity, start longer duration, get used to it, right? That said, metabolically, your body's going, what's going on here? What muscle fibers do we fire? In what sequence do we fire them? Do we need the big ones, the type 2X? Do we need the moderate ones, the type 2A? Do we need the low, the endurance guys, the type 1? What do we need right now? And how many of them do we need? In what sequence do we fire them? That's a difficult thing for some kind of stress you haven't experienced in a long time. If you haven't shot a basketball in a long time or kicked a soccer ball in a long time, you're a little off, feel a little bit off, that's that body's adaptation to stress. Your nervous system is not quite sure to get back into this again to respond the same way. You lost some reflex, so to speak, right? Some of that can be gained back, some cannot. We won't know until we train it to find out, right? That said, endocrine efficiency or the efficiency of the hormone response or the endocrine system's ability to secrete the right hormones at the right time to stimulate the appropriate internal activity, that's going to come from the right level of stress as well. So we don't overstress the system whereby we challenge the homeostasis too much and the body ends up secreting far more cortisol than it does insulin-like growth factor. Thyroxine is not able to be stimulated at the proper level to help help the metabolism or metabolic effect internally. We're not able to secrete the insulin levels secreted to too high of a level because too much glucose is entering the system, disrupts the whole balance of the system. All sorts of things that can affect the expression of DNA, that can affect the expression of enzymes and other cells in the body. We can't alter DNA. Your DNA is your DNA, but we can alter the expression of all sorts of cells in your body and their response to stress if we appropriately challenge for the right levels of stress, right? Not too far from the homeostatic level of today. Adrenaline versus epinephrine, same thing. Secreted by the adrenal gland during times of stress, right? Your body's ability to be able to kind of stimulates that internal response to get you going for a few seconds or for longer than a few seconds maybe for extreme stress situations. Of course, that wears you out immediately after. It's supposed to be for fight or flight. People take a bunch of caffeine in to get that big boost, but ultimately you have the big fall down because the body's going to have that negative response after the adrenaline rush. That's not something we want to try to stimulate on a regular basis. It's also why people can't have competition level performance on a regular basis. Some people try to train that way, thinking you're going to get the same level of competition outside of competition itself. You can't. Your body cannot handle that kind of stress, that competitive stress. You can tell someone we're running a race in practice, or you tell someone we're playing game level intensity during practice. It will never be the same as during the game. It just won't. There's more on the line with most people in that situation. There's more going on with the crowd, with the expectation of the actual game. They know it's the actual game psychologically, let alone physiologically, and the effect that, therefore, through the body's internal responses. So adrenaline is going to be secreted, but you got to be careful. If you overtap that, the body's going to respond negatively with fatigue and potential injury. Insulin and glucagon are both secreted by the pancreas. Your body's pancreas secretes insulin to take glucose up and actually utilize it for energy, right? Take in too much glucose, too much sugar, the body can't take it all up. How much is too much? Depends on the person, doesn't it? It depends on the moment in time, doesn't it? Not just the person, right? Sometimes of day people are different, let alone what are they just activity-wise. Best time taking more sugar, post-training. You're going to be able to take in all sorts of amount just working out. Taking a bunch of sugar now, not going to have a real negative effect on you because you just worked out and 30 to 90 minutes ago, give or take. Okay. That said, Insulin is going to be secreted to actually uptake the glucose. Glucagon is going to do the same thing for fat. However, when insulin goes up, glucagon goes down. When glucagon goes up, insulin goes down. So when someone takes a bunch of sugar and fat in, you really disrupt the system. It's a bad combination. There really is no ideal situation where you want to take in both sugar and fat together. You take in sugar post-exercise, you take in sugar during high levels of intensity stress during that stress if it's a longer period of stress, but ultimately sugar is just something fun and nice it wouldn't normally take normal circumstances very much of, right? Just don't say it's wrong or evil, because it's not. Likewise, fat. Best time is not to take it anywhere near activity or post-activity. Times where you're away from significant activity, barring lower intensity type activity, right? So we got to be understanding those differences and not ask our body to do too much with both at the same time. Really dramatically negatively affects metabolism and hormone response. Cortisol is going to be secreted for that catabolic effect when the adrenal glands secrete cortisol to metabolize fat. Okay, which is a positive thing, transporting fat and whatnot. Also, for breakdown, cellular breakdown from stress. Your body's got to do that. It's a very natural response to breakdown. That said, we don't want breakdown to keep occurring in the many hours following activity. How do we keep that from happening? Not surprising. Want to keep needling many of you in your these first 2 weeks. Hopefully, I'll have to do less and less as the weeks go on, because you're going to be very clear for you as a coach, let alone for me as your instructor, as your professor for this class, is that when I'm getting out and I say, well, how do you know if it's working? How do you know? The obvious. They can achieve the level of performance you want. Okay, but you got to be clear about the performance. Not just are they running, what speed are they running? Are they slowing down? That's not what you want. I know it's what you want, not what you wanted. Is their technique breaking down? I also know that's not what you wanted. Are they getting lower output? That's not the goal. That's how you know it's not working, right? Technique fails, power fails, speed fails, force output fails. Maybe all the above, maybe it's only one factor. Rest period's probably too short, or maybe you're doing too many sets. Don't know, but you got to figure that out. Okay, and you're going to get the negative response if that occurs on a regular basis, or if you do it too often, or if you try to do too many sets. Okay, that's not what we want. It's a very natural response, though. The anterior pituitary releases adrenocorticotropic hormone, which then is all secreted. Then it gets the adrenal gland to secrete cortisol. Okay. Then you have testosterone and estrogen being released from the ovaries and the testes from men and women. Men are going to have not hopefully, but generally speaking, less estrogen and more towards testosterone, typically masculine versus feminine characteristics, right? Women will have combinations thereof, and sometimes men have more estrogen than they do relative to other men. Sometimes women have more testosterone relative to other women. Take Serena Williams in tennis, or Caster Semenya if you follow track and field, who's got a lot of controversy of how much internal, naturally occurring testosterone she has that they're saying is too much for a female to have. A lot of controversy there. But regardless, testosterone secreted by the sex glands, as well as estrogen secreted by the sex glands as well, are basically from the anterior pituitary secreting luteinizing hormone, which then stimulates the ovaries and the testes to actually produce testosterone or estrogen. Okay, and that said, testosterone is going to be utilized for growth. Okay? You're not going to get muscular growth, significant strength, significant power if you don't have enough testosterone. How do you get more testosterone? Hopefully you picked your parents pretty well. That's a natural thing. That's genetics. Can't do anything about that. It is what it is. It's a joke, right? That said, you can enhance it with the proper levels of training, the proper levels of higher intensity type training. Then you get the proper rest periods following it, and you help enhance testosterone. And of course, between the times not a shocker. The rest, the sleep, the hydration, all those things. But the most important factor, your coaches. I'm a coach, you're a coach, I'm a teacher of coaches and a coach and an athlete too. The most important thing is the exercise. I'm going to say it again. The most important thing is the exercise. In your posts, you can talk about water, you can talk about nutrition, you can talk about sleep, you can talk about psychological factors, and you should talk about those things. But you better be talking more about exercise, because that is our job, to better adapt our athletes to exercise stress. So always spend more time talking about that, because that's what you're supposed to know the most. Okay? Insulin-like growth factor is secreted the anterior pituitary secretes via growth hormones secreted from the anterior pituitary, stimulating the response of insulin-like growth factor, which is an anabolic response, whereas cortisol is a catabolic response. Both are normal during activity. Insulin-like growth factor trying to stimulate more growth, and then the cortisol is trying to break stuff down. These anabolic and catabolic reactions are going on at the same time all the time. Of course, you want to stimulate more of the anabolic and less of the catabolic over time, and that takes a lot of precision toward our work and rest periods relative to the athlete's needs and the goals we have for them. The specific adaptation to impose demands. You adapt to whatever demand you impose upon somebody to the best that you can, but if you don't get the right specificity, picking the right exercise to meet the right goal in the right duration, the right rest period, all that, you will not get the proper specific adaptation to impose demands. And that's never what we want. Thyroxine helps regulate metabolism, secreted via the thyroid. People who have overtapped their systems, have chronic fatigue-related issues, always tired, have tapped that thyroid hormone and thyroxine, you're not getting a proper response here metabolically. You may have difficulty, you start gaining weight very commonly. You can have it overactive or underactive, anything. There's always that balance too, without getting too deep into endocrine system response. But that's a very important function that you wouldn't know unless you actually get a blood test. However, somebody who's experiencing a lot of fatigue just can't figure out why, what's wrong. It's been many, many months, 6 months or more of that kind of response. And then you want to get checked out, possibly have chronic fatigue-related issues. It's a very real thing, right? Got to be very careful with our athletes. And of course, inflammation is a very normal response. Inflammation occurs following stress in general. Our system is meant to do that, to respond, to react to that stress, all the different hormone response, the cellular response, blood flow. Inflammation is normal, but the inflammation is supposed to normalize as soon as possible. The sooner it can get there after exercise, the better. Proper cool down, proper rest periods between sets, proper days between exercise. Those are really, really important factors for us. And of course, if we do that, theoretically, we can avoid getting sick. If you have a one-on-one athlete, you got no reason, your athlete or your client or whoever should never get hurt under your care, should never get sick under your care. And I mean that. I'm not talking about bacterial problems. Viral-wise, if they're paying attention to you and you're adapting everything to their stress, it should almost never happen. Almost never, right? But you're talking about groups. The problem is we train to the highest athletes. Really what should happen that never happens in sport is you have your bigger guys, your centers, and some of your forwards in basketball, maybe your goalie and some of the other defensive players versus your forwards and midfielders. We split up in conditioning time, so we split athletes up. Or even some of the speed and power type stuff. You're not going to get the same response from all these guys. We should be training them differently. Not all the same because they all play soccer or they all play football, especially football. Linemen versus wide receivers and those guys, they should be trained differently. In game time, they play their role differently. Why would they not be expected to condition differently, right? But we have to be consciously aware of all the different factors that affect negatively immunity, as well as overly stress the response of inflammation, which is a normal response, but can become chronic, and that's not a good thing. Final thoughts. As we move into the next week, into week 3 here, keep improving. Impress yourself. Don't try to impress me. Say, hey, that was a great response. I put a lot of effort into that. And I've kind of already delineated for you how to do that. General process, not easy, but simple, right? It can be simple, but not easy. It's always that. If you impress you, if you impress other people, you probably will also impress me. Again, there's still some of you that are using a lot of definitions. Don't even cite definitions. Don't even say them. Seriously. Just start talking about the hormone. Just start talking about the response. Talk about what's happening as it applies. Don't waste time in your posts giving definitions and how something works, how it moves in this metabolism, moves in this metabolism. Talk about it as it relates to your sport. Okay, and avoid all that extraneous definition explanation, which just takes up more words in your post that don't even count for us. I'm concerned for what I'm looking for you, which is your analysis, your evaluation, your application. Okay, all the above, not just restating. Okay, we can all do that. You guys are all smart if you already do that. That said, exams in 2 weeks. This is week 3 coming in now here. Week 4 is our exam. 100 questions over the first 8/9 chapters include chapter 0. So be prepared for that by actually doing well in your Learn Smarts, continuing to review the weekly videos maybe more than once. Certainly maybe glancing over your chapters again, that's up to you. But that's my recommendation to get yourself ready for your exam, which is closed book. Okay, meaning you can't access anything online at all. And of course, paper in 3 weeks, you are going to be in week 5. Actually, you're going to be 2 weeks from this week. You're going to be having a paper. any topic of your choice. Be prepared for that. We'll talk more about that as we close the end of week 3 to get you ready for week 5. That said, call or email me if you have questions. Continue to grow, continue to improve. That's the goal for all of us. My goal for me, it's my goal for you. Hopefully the same that you feel toward your own progress.